Harold Grant. Our first guest has somehow made us root for a philandering, murdering president and has helped make Scandal one of television's most talked about shows. And the drama doesn't stop there. On his new show, The Divide, he's stepping behind the camera to tell the story of the fight to free a death row inmate who may have been wrongfully convicted. Please welcome the fantastic Tony Goldwyn.
Tony. Okay, between everything that you've done with like acting and directing and producing, do you think people have forgiven you for being responsible for Patrick Swayze's death in Ghost?
I must say I have gotten a number of tweets saying, well, I have finally forgiven you for killing Sam Wheaton.
Okay, that's good.
Not that I'm any less murderous on Scandal, but, you know.
Yeah.
Did people ever give you a hard time? Did people ever...
Yeah, you know, the craziest thing that happened when Ghost first came into the movie theaters, and was sort of this surprise hit, I was rehearsing a play in New York, and I went to get a bite to eat during a break, and I went to this empty restaurant, and the waitress wouldn't seat me. And I'm standing there going, why is this woman so hostile? And I finally had to be, I said, I gotta go, you know, and so she's fine. And then she wouldn't take my order, and then finally I had to get her to bring me a menu, and she was just like, what is this woman's problem? And then as I was eating my dinner, she's looking at me like this, you know, and she comes over, she said, I'm sorry, are you an actor? And I said, yes. She said, you were in that movie Ghost. I said, yeah. And she said, oh my God, I knew I hated you, but I couldn't figure out why. She said, I thought you were, she said, I thought you were someone I'd slept with, and you were horrible to me, but I couldn't remember your name. Anyway.
That tells you a little bit about the waitress.
Yeah. But we got along very well after that.
One of the perks of playing the President of the United States on television is that you got to meet the actual President of the United States.
Yeah, that was
What did the two of you say to each other when you met?
Well, it was kind of surreal because, you know, there's sort of a line to meet the President and the First Lady, and as I walked up, he said, Mr. President, how are you? So I said, Mr. President. And no, he was so lovely, and he wanted to know why I didn't look more stressed. Why I didn't have more gray hair, and I said, well, sir, my job is not nearly as hard as yours. Yeah.
Now, the love scenes on your show are sometimes very, very steamy. Yes.
Yes.
Now, you directed one of those episodes where there was a love scene. Did you find it difficult to direct yourself during the love scenes?
Yeah, it was tricky. Yeah. It was weird to direct Carrie during the love scene. But, you know, we have such a great working relationship, and it was a particularly steamy, it was in the second season, and it was when Olivia and Fitz are finally reunited, when, if people remember, when, you know, Mellie goes public with my infidelity, and so it was a very emotionally charged thing, and that's kind of where that makes it easier, because as actors we always go, what's the scene really about? So it was odd, and it's always strange what we do for a living, but you know, Carrie and I just know how to communicate, so it was cool.
Because you could have that passion, because you were relieved that it was out in the open, and you could do what you want now. Huh?
Exactly.
Aside from the juicy sex scenes, Scandal's also known for its juicy dialogue. So do you have a favorite line that Fitz has said over the years?
You mean aside from something about my presidential balls? They're enormous. My favorite line, I think, is from the first season, the episode that's called The Trail, when you flash back to how we met. And I had this great line in the scene in the bus with Carrie where I said, how could I have been such a coward to marry her and not wait for you to show up? And I thought that was such a beautiful, so, you know, kind of such a...
most interesting things about the cast is that you guys seem to be as big a fan of the show as the rest of us are. And Shonda Rhimes, who created it, is infamous for not giving away any plot twists, even to the cast. So is there anything that you can tell us about The Fall? Because the season ended like, it was an amazing cliffhanger at the end of the season.
I can't tell you anything.
Nothing?
I would spontaneously explode. Lightning would strike me down.
You've shown the secret side.
And we don't know, like you said. I mean, now, because we're working on it, we know a little bit, which I won't share with you. But for example, the finale of last season, we never see anything until, we sit down and read them together a couple of days before we shoot. And literally, when we sat and read that last thing, we were all screaming, sort of crying, and I find out that Mellie gets raped, and we're like, oh my God! And then
By
Shonda
your daddy?
goes,
Wasn't it your daddy?
yeah. And Shonda says, wait, that's only the end of the first act. And then every act, there was some other thing. And finally, as people know, my son dies.
Yes.
And literally, that was devastating. So.
Spoiler alert.
You're like on a drama and experience a drama as you go to work.
We do,
You're like,
every week,
what?
yeah.
Well, we love it. We're going to have much, much more with Tony Goldwyn.
He told me everything. And I'm not really interested in talking about the past because I think you and I both agree what's done is done.
We do.
And we know your son. He's not always as practical as you and I.
He's not moving forward on this thing, is he?
I don't know. He hasn't told me. All I care about is my family, and I want to know what you're going to do to protect them.
That was a scene from the new show, The Divide, and we're back with the show's co-creator and executive producer, Tony Goldwyn. Now, Tony, this seems as complicated as Scandal, so what's going on?
Well, it's so complicated, I'll try and be concise. The Divide, which, if people have been watching, just gets more and more complicated. But the premise is, it focuses on a case in which two men were convicted for a very brutal, very racially inflammatory case on which the DA of Philadelphia, the man who's not in that scene who they're talking about, made his career on. And a young woman from a fictional Innocence Initiative, which is based on the Real Innocence Project, pull the thread on this case and starts to unravel, and you realize that a man may have been wrongfully executed and another man imprisoned for 12 years and been innocent. And this case starts to unravel all of these lives surrounding. And it really looks at the gray areas in our justice system and, what is justice, what is truth, and
political motivation.
Yeah, and political motivation.
And what people will do to keep it.
Oh,
Right.
So,
Because it's not about justice at all.
It's not.
yeah, and if people saw last night's episode, which I won't spoil because it's a show that you may really want to binge watch, because it's, if I do say so myself, we're really proud of it. Last night's episode, there was this extraordinary revelation and very dramatic moment between the father, played by the great Clark Peters, if any of you know The Wire and Treme, and his son Adam, who's the DA, played by Damon Gupton, and it's released a Firestorm, which is what Nia Long and Clark were just talking about.
Who Nia plays the wife.
Nia plays the wife of the DA.
Who's slightly politically ambitious, or at least that's how she looked.
Yeah, absolutely. Aren't we all? Yeah.
She doesn't miss a thing.
At the end of the season, Tony, does the audience get a resolution? Will justice be done?
Well, that's a very complicated question, and the answer is yes and no. I mean, this case that we follow through the whole first season will reach a resolution. And in one sense, justice will be done, and in another sense, profound injustices will have occurred. It sounds like a contradiction, but it gets very messy. And everybody you think is good does bad things, and everybody you think is maybe bad ends up having, dignity and nobility, and it's messy, kind of like life.
Yeah.
But it's really the last couple episodes were awesome.
Now, before you go, I have to ask you, we know you play President on Scandal, but you actually played King earlier in your career, King of the Jungle, in the Tarzan animated movie. How
Likeness is extraordinary.
Which one is you? Was it difficult to perfect that patented yell?
It was. It was. I mean, I had a little help from, you know, technology. But yeah, we worked long and hard on it, and I did it a lot. I haven't for years, but in my children's, like, 4th grade class, I was in a lot of classrooms in elementary school in those days, making all the kids stand up and do the Tarzan yell with me.
Did they make you do the yell for the audition?
No, they didn't.
Interesting. What if you couldn't do the yell? They would have just done it.
They didn't know if they were going to fake it, just make it, you know, because the Johnny Weissmuller yell, the famous one, was almost completely fabricated. But we ended up using a lot of my voice, and I think there was some opera singer, and I don't know. There were other elements, but we ended up, you know, it was largely.
We believed it was all you, Tony Goldwyn, ladies and gentlemen. The Divide airs Wednesday nights at 9, 8 Central on WEtv, and Scandal returns to ABC with new episodes this fall. We'll be right back.